Hey, what's up? Thanks for joining me today. We're gonna unbox the Kreg Miter Gauge system here. I think it's called the Kreg Precision Miter Gauge system. Yeah, some of the features I was really interested in was this thing claims it's extremely accurate, but I was really interested in the hard stops that it has at 0 degrees, 22.5, 45, and 90. Quick switch in between angles I thought would be a big upgrade for me. The old miter gauge is terrible, so the bar's pretty low here, but yeah, having some trouble getting into the box here. Alright, finally in there, and the first thing out is this awesome aluminum fence. I really like the idea that my fence would never warp. Maybe some people aren't into the milled look of it. I really like it. Seems nice, clean, very well milled. So let's put that aside. Oh yeah, gotta have the manual, right? We'll be looking at that a lot today. Yeah, next piece out is this miter base, I guess, attached to the slot. You can see all the little holes there are spots that this pin drops into. Those are the hard stops for the different angles. Alright, had to flip the box around for this because the hardware packet was kind of strapped to the inside of it. So this is the swing stop that this gauge is kind of famous for. It sits up there on the fence and just swings up and out of the way when you don't need it, and down, and provides a pretty good stop when you do need it. It slides on this nice little knob too that just like slides in the track on the top. Super easy to adjust. Alright, so now I'm taking out all the different hardware packets. It's at this moment that I realized I was not using this jig anytime soon, or this gauge rather. Some serious assembly is required for this. So yeah, check it out. You can see the knob there that goes into the base, pretty high quality. So this hardware doesn't seem to be assorted in any particular way, and even after building it, like not even all of it was assorted by step, so I don't know what they were going for there. But there it is, all out together. Here's everything that was in the box. Here's a closer look for you. Alright, so just taking a minute to familiarize myself with the instruction manual, see if I got all the hardware. There's not really a parts list, so that wasn't very helpful, but that's all good. Checking everything out and moving on to step one, turning the miter base to 0 and putting the brass stop pin in. I don't know why they have you do that, because it's just going to fall out when you try to do the rest of the assembly process, but you'll see that in a minute. Alright, so just fiddling here. Okay, now we're putting the knob onto the base. That's kind of how you fasten it after you hit the individual stops with the pin there. You move the gauge, put the pin in, tighten the handle every time. So this is one of these little screws that they include that help adjust the rail that comes with this that fits the slot on your table saw or whatever you're using this on. Probably going to be your table saw though. Basically, you can adjust these to fine-tune the fit, and there will be no play if you're patient and tighten them one by one until you get it right. So taking some time to thread these most of the way in. I actually needed a very small screwdriver for this. I wasn't able to use the one that you see me using here until I took it to some sandpaper and actually made it slightly narrower. It was already kind of a junk screwdriver, so rather than throwing sparks on my power sander, I just decided to do it by hand with a rough grit until it fit. Yeah, and you got to get these screws like coming through the other side, so the tip of the screwdriver really has to actually be able to fit in there. It's got to be narrower than the base of the screw. So now I'm just putting these glides that came with the gauge onto the back. These just let it slide across your table saw. They don't look particularly beefy, and I actually kind of broke one as I was trying to move it. I'm using a rubber mallet to very gently tap these into place. My shop is real cold today, and I suspect they would have gone in by hand if I was somewhere warmer. Alright, so now we got to attach the fence to the miter base. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to take these two little hex bolts that come with it, and they slide right onto the track, the head of them. So you see me slide one in, and then we'll grab the other, slide that in. And then these just poke through these little holes on the miter base. See me lining those up here. Then you just take these little knobs that come with it to later quick adjust it. Just slide those on and thread them. Stop pin back in. That fell out about 10 times in this process. Alright, there you go. So let's bring it over to the saw. The next part of this we're supposed to do with the miter gauge on the saw for whatever reason. In hindsight, you probably could have just left it on the table as long as you had it flat. So we're going to take this tape that comes with it. I'm not sure why they didn't do this before sending it out. Maybe they can offer it to you cheaper if you do this part yourself, but you're supposed to cut it at 1 inch and then 25 inches. And then it has an adhesive side on the back that you peel the tape off as you stick it down. So we're going to put this on the top of the fence here in a little groove that it fits like into in a satisfying way. Just making sure I get it perfect, taking my time. This is really sped up. It took me a while here to like make sure that it was perfectly in there. Alright, you can see it's pretty precise when you get it right. Fits perfectly in this milled groove. It's a very shallow little groove. You don't even really notice it till you go to this step. Alright, so next we have to assemble this little stop, the sliding, swinging stop situation that this miter gauge is known for. So they really just give you a diagram that's a picture of a bunch of different, well, it's just a picture of the grand scheme of things with the parts separated, and you kind of just line them up, pop them in. So there's this long screw, I guess it's a bolt actually, that threads through both pieces that sit next to one another, both the swinging piece and the knob that slides within the track at the top of the fence. So I'm just taking my time, trying to get this right. There's these little spacers. I want to make sure I got all of them and I'm not leaving parts on the table, so to speak. It's always a bad feeling when you assemble what you thought was all of the pieces and then there's still like significantly too many pieces left over, like more than just a spare screw. Always depressing. Anyhow, getting to the bottom of this, you're supposed to tighten these two nuts until the swinging stop swings down slowly from gravity. So that's kind of it's going to be a matter of personal preference. I mean, it doesn't really go anywhere. It just swings more easily, but in either resting position, it's not going to go anywhere by itself. So it doesn't matter too much. Just get it tight. So next we're going to use this little T bolt to slide into this cut T-track on the top of the fence, and that's how the stop slides. I'll go ahead and tighten this down and start fiddling. Alright, check that out. That's the swinging stop, courtesy of Kreg. They've become known for it. It seems good so far. I've never had a proper stop like attached to my fence before. I've always just clamped things there. So here it is from the other side. Okay, the last thing to do here is, before adjusting it, is taking this little bolt, putting it through this little metal barrel and attaching this fence stop, just with a nut and a washer on the other side. This just prevents your fence from moving in the other direction. So and then you can simply adjust the little indicator to fine-tune it and get it dead on. That takes the error of where you placed your tape out of it, because you're just adjusting it before you use the gauge anyway. So mine's a little bit short, you can see, so I'm just going to take a minute to fiddle around with the indicator. You can see me loosening it here. It's just this little clear tab that threads or slides into a slot and then is held tight with a screw, and then you can fine-tune it. Super easy. So just a matter of trial and error here. If you had a reliable like 1-inch metal ruler or something like that, you could space the stop away from your blade and just adjust according to that and kind of simplify this process. I don't have anything like that, so I'm doing it the old-fashioned way, trial and error. Alright, so just for the heck of it, after dialing this in, I took a piece, set the indicator to 7 inches, and measured. Looks to be dead on, so now we're going to check the accuracy of this thing. We're going to take a nice wide piece and square it up to the miter gauge and try to cut a perfect 90-degree angle. Nice smooth cut, no splintering on the end, I like that. It's a credit to my table saw blade as well, but... Alright, let's have a look at this. So, I know this is just a carpenter square, but I found it to be one of my more reliable squares. I don't have a set of nice woodpecker ones or anything yet, but I'll go ahead and check these with a digital gauge later and show you guys what the measurements are. Looks pretty dead on with this square. Very dead on. So that's exciting. I think we're gonna have to check some 45 miters though. So I've got the gauge set at 45 degrees, courtesy of the hard stop here. Realized that I didn't have the piece all the way up to the stop, so I backed out of the cut. Then continued with it. I know the gauge looks really close to the blade here, and it's not far from the blade, but I tested this about 1,000,000 times out of paranoia just to make sure I wasn't going to make contact and trash the gauge and the blade at the same time. I really liked that cut. It felt great. Didn't have to force it at all. Alright, let's measure this guy. It feels great. It feels very flush. You can... Again, looks perfect. I didn't do myself any favors by messing up the beginning of that cut and then cutting a new line right after it, but there you go. Showing you this looks like a perfect 45, or extremely close, closer than I'm accustomed to. I'll have to make another video later gluing up something like a picture frame where any errors are really going to show up. Anyhow, just showing you how the hard stop mechanism works here. You can see you just unscrew the handle, move it to a new position, drop the pin in, retighten the handle, and you want to make sure that there's a nice arrow on the vernier scale here. You want to make sure that's lined up as you tighten. I do enjoy the hard stops. That's the reason I got this. Like, if there was one reason I got this miter gauge above others, it was those hard stops to easily cut 45s and 90s with accuracy. No fiddling. So it's doing its job there. You might notice it's way too much gauge for the size of my table on my table saw. It's like a 24-inch. I think that's one of the longer ones, if not the longest out there. So I should have got a smaller, like, telescoping one, but I am very pleased with the accuracy of this. Overall, in love with the jig. Seems accurate out of the box. Yeah, thanks for watching. Consider throwing me a like or a subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. Yeah, peace.